everyone, welcome back to Rachel Ann Quilts, where we bring your creative ideas to life, one stitch at a time. I'm Rachel Ann, and today we're moving on to part 4 of our T-Shirt and Memory Quilting series. It's time to assemble the quilt top. We've done all the prep work, and now it's time to bring those T-shirt blocks together. First, you're going to want to lay out your T-shirt blocks and sashing according to the design we already planned earlier. This is your last chance to make any adjustments to the layout. First, let's lay out our T-shirt blocks and sashing according to the design we planned. As you can see, my design wall is not large enough for this king-size quilt, so we have some overlapping rows here, but it still gives us the general idea of what that layout is going to be. This is your last chance to make any adjustments to the layout. Arrange your blocks on a design wall or on a flat surface to see how they look together. Take a step back and view your layout from a distance. This is a perfect time to snap a photo to make sure you're happy with the arrangement and that the colors and patterns are balanced across the quilt. Now that we have the blocks and horizontal sashing laid out, it's time to start sewing the blocks together. We'll begin by sewing the blocks into columns. We'll use a 1/4 inch seam allowance for all of our seams. So let's get started. Place a block and sashing right side together, lining up all of your edges. You're going to sew along the edge with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. You're going to continue adding blocks and sashing to form a column. Repeat this process for all columns. One tip I have is the stitch you use. So if you use a straight stitch with a t-shirt quilt, t-shirts are very flexible. So over time, as that quilt is loved and used, that straight stitch is more likely to break and rip out. If you use an overlocking stitch, that is going to be more durable and help the quilt to last longer as it's being dragged around and loved and used. Now that we have our columns assembled, it's time to sew them together with the vertical sashing. To ensure that your quilt top doesn't get stretched out of shape as you assemble your columns, you'll want to measure and mark each intersection on your sashing. Since we have our original layout drawing, we know how tall each finished block and horizontal sashing strip should be. These are the measurements we use to mark our vertical tall sashing strips. And as you can see, I have mine laying on the mat going sideways. So the top of my strip is over here and the bottom is over here. So I like to take my sashing strips and I would measure, making sure that at the top of my strip, we haven't stitched this yet, so there's a 1/4 inch there, and then we would measure our measurement. In my case, it's 18 inches. So I would have a 1/4 inch here, followed by 18 inches. Then my sashing strip is stitched, so that's a finished size of 2 inches. So I'm going to continue using my drawing and marking all the way down my sashing strip. One of my favorite tools is the Friction Pilot Erasable Pen. So you can mark with this using the lines on your mat. You don't want to put it on your strip and simply stretch, because then the sashing as well as the quilt strip will get stretched out of shape. So use the lines on your mat to measure and then mark where all of your intersections should be for your sashing. Now that everything's marked, you're going to want to pin your rows together, matching the seams or sashing measurements carefully. This will help keep everything aligned as you sew. You don't want to start at the top and just smooth your way down. You want to pin all of your intersections or your measurements first, and then you're going to come back and you're going to ease the sashing in between. You can use clips, there's multiple kinds you can use, or you can use pins all the way along. By putting the pins in this direction, when you get to the sewing machine and it's running through your machine, it will be easy to pull these pins out of the side, because you do not want to stitch over the pins or it can break one of your sewing needles. So again, start by aligning up all of your measurements, pinning or clipping in between. Now if you're not using sashing strips and just putting blocks together, this is where nesting seams comes into play. Nesting seams helps your quilt top lie flat and look more polished. To nest your seams, press the seams of one row in one direction and the seams of the next row in the opposite direction. When you sew the rows together, the seams will bump nicely together. So if I were nesting, this would be heading this direction because this row is going that direction. So if you look, these will bump up together because the seam is pressed in the opposite direction. So I think you can see how those bump together. That's called nesting seams. Sew along the edge with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, joining the columns. Take your time as you sew to make sure the seams stay nested if you are not using sashing strips. Great job! Your quilt blocks are now assembled, but we're not done yet. The next step is going to be to press the seams to ensure everything lies flat and then add borders if you desire. You want to make sure you press your seams carefully. You can press them to one side or you can press them so that they lay open. It's up to you on what you prefer. Just make sure that when you're done, everything is flat and smooth. And there you have it. Your quilt top is now assembled and pressed. It's really starting to come together, isn't it? In the next video, we'll add borders to frame your quilt and give it that final touch. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next part of our series. Thanks for watching and happy quilting!